Johnny and myself. And we're running now into the third year. And as always, we start with some updates. Maybe first of all, including myself, I knew like, oh, in that session, that person, they present some KQL queries. Now, luckily, most of the useful KQL queries nowadays can be found on KQL search.com, but not always. So I thought we have a lot of KQL goodness in our shows, but how to search. So basically, I've been working last weekend in revamping our KQLCafe.com website. So give it a try. It now has a search function. It's all markdown. I'm still catching up with making all the show notes look, nicely the same. Apologize for that. I wasn't that strict always, but I'm wrapping up. And basically all the content, all the links, all the code snippets, of course, provided that the speaker shared them with us, can be found on KQLCafe.com, where you also will find, of course, the information on past sessions, as well as the upcoming sessions. Speaking about upcoming sessions, we're now in June. In July, we take a break, summer holidays. Johnny is going to Italy, so coming my way. I'm going back to the Netherlands, seeing my family. So we might cross each other somewhere on the road. But yes, then in August, we'll be back. However, not on the last Tuesday of the month, but a week before. And then in September, we have to check because as we always deliver the session at the end of the month, Johnny and I are both at the Workplace Ninja Summit conference in Lucerne, Switzerland. So maybe we broadcast something from there, or otherwise we will have a slightly different schedule. And as always, if you have been a guest on our show and you'd like to come back, let us know. And yes, we also have some interesting people in the pipeline for the rest of the year. Good. Let's move over to the agenda. So what's new? A couple of months ago, I think it was 2 or 3 months ago, we had the product team from Microsoft who is working on the Log Analytics UI interface. And they already gave us a demo, but now it's actually GA, so generally available. So I notice it's not yet there in all tenants, but if it's activated, you should now see this nice button in the right side of the Log Analytics UI, and there you can switch between simple mode and the normal query mode. I must say there's a little bug right now, but they're working on it because whenever you execute something also in query mode, it always falls back to 24 hours. So you have to reset the time range whenever you have executed a query, but I'm confident that they will fix this soon. And yes, of course, for you as a proficient KQL user, you might not use this, but definitely helpful to share this with your peers and colleagues who might not be yet that familiar with KQL. But if they want to work with data, that you get them.
It's actually quite good that you share this, Alex, because over the last days, also in the normal mode, the timestamp goes back 24 hours.
Yeah.
So run into the same issues.
And I think that the other thing is that, is it normal? I mean, is there an option to go to KQL mode from the beginning? Because it always falls under the simple mode. I mean,
to be honest, I don't know because I'm a typical private browser user whenever I log on. But I haven't tested this. Whether are you also logging on in private mode? I mean, it's a little bit the same as with this annoying. I mean, I always tell people you don't believe how often I see the Defender XDR pop up, every day, because whenever I log on to a tenant in private mode, and since I haven't created any browser profiles for obvious reasons, So I could imagine that this has to do with that, but if not, let me check, and I can definitely bring this back to the product team as well.
Yeah.
Good. Then, there was a nice addition. So we already spoke about the definitive guide to KQL book that you, of course, already hopefully have in your hands or have ordered. But last week, I believe Rod Trent or Matt gave an update. And now on the GitHub repository, there is actually also now a section called, Microsoft employee submitted queries. And yeah, thanks to ChatGPT, I could just throw in the whole page and say, give me a summary of use cases. So here we are, a lot of interesting use cases and queries. And these were all provided by the following Microsoft employees. One or the other name sounds familiar. So yeah, definitely have a look. If you're looking for more inspiration, more examples, and especially what I found interesting, quite some stuff around, SQL Server, MongoDB, and that sort of things. Then I came across another topic while I was doing some research, work-related. And yeah, if you're into WAC, so application control from Windows Defender, so topics like App Locker and WDAC, you definitely want to look at the work done by Hotcake X. She also has a very posted a nice video how to basically leverage KQL in combination with the deployment of WDAC. So
Cool.
if that's part of your work, take a look.
But shouldn't we call it MDAC instead of WDAC? Microsoft Defender Application Control?
Okay. Can be.
Virtually rebranded.
Yeah, I'm an old guy. I stick to the old names. Takes me a while to get away from Windows Defender ATP, right?
Nice.
Good. And yeah, lastly, coincidence that Bert Young is actually on the call, but I also found this noteworthy because it has been something people have been asking for a long, long time, especially in certain industries, not just the nerds, but also customers for auditing purposes. So definitely take a look if you want to know. And to be honest, they actually over-delivered because for many years we have been asking for, can we have an audit trail of the things that people do in Defender for Endpoint? Because we were mostly interested in the incident response actions and, who did now start a live response action, who did isolate the machine. But actually, that's why I say they over-delivered, because we not only get now the incident response actions, but we also get basically a lot of activities that people can do in the portal. So adding, removing, editing an indicator, changing Defender for Identity configuration settings, etc., etc. So
I still have one feature request for the team, but what it is, if you do, you can do this from KQL. If you're lazy, you can also do it from the Unified Audit Portal.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you look in the API, you can see that you can see which hunting queries from Defender are deleted, but that doesn't report yet back into the audit logs. So if you delete hunting queries from the Defender portal, not the detections, then you won't see it.
Okay. No, but the detections you see, and actually the audit logs are quite enriched. So you do not only see someone added an indicator, you see the IP address, you see the groups being changed in Defender for Identity. So yeah, shortly after Bert Young posted this, I guess everybody who likes to experiment, what is in the data, run a couple of distinct action types and workloads. So there's Defender Microsoft 365, Defender XDR portal related. We have Defender for Identity, Defender for Endpoint, and I assume we probably will see more of that. Things If you're streaming your logs into Microsoft Sentinel, I actually just closed my working day by updating a workbook that I had created for a customer historically. So in the past, I used the API and stored all get the information that was available into a custom table. That is now no longer needed. Also, Olaf Hartung wrote about that approach a couple of months ago. But now that we have those in the Cloud App events, again, I just took 2 screenshots, so this is not all. You have to enable the audit logging. Then if you want the logs to arrive in Cloud App events, of course, you also have to make sure that you have the Defender for Cloud Apps Office application properly configured. And if that's the case, your audit activities should flow into the Cloud App Events table as shown here. Good. And last but not least, I didn't have time to actually play with this, but the Defender for Endpoint team gave an update. And there's now also a schema extension or another attribute where it's now possible to detect suspicious processes running on hidden desktops. As said, I haven't had the time to look into it, but if you're after detections, definitely worthwhile looking at this as well. Good. And with that, I am super pleased, or we are super pleased to welcome Michalis Michalos to our show. Yeah, a warm welcome, and let me start, Michalis, asking you to introduce yourself and how on earth you suddenly appeared on the KQL landscape. I believe I know many people meanwhile, but yeah, it's funny. You came and you started to deliver a wealth of information, and what we really appreciate being community-driven people, that you actually share all that experiences and knowledge that you make. So yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So thank you guys first and foremost for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here. I was I usually watch the show one day after during commute. So yeah, I mean, I've seen that a lot of people, I'm sharing the floor where a lot of legends have stepped into right here. So yeah, again, thank you. So yeah, I was thinking that someone from this part of Europe should hold strong and start contributing in KQL and Microsoft security in general. So that was a hole that I wanted to fill in and keep up with you guys. But yeah, no, seriously. I think that I was given the opportunity before, 3 years ago almost, start working with a Microsoft environment where I had the opportunity to, play around with a lot of technologies like, Defender for Endpoint, Sentinel, back in the days when everything were a little bit more simpler, more straightforward. So I was kind of amazed from one hand from the simplicity of approaching some stuff and being able to threat hunt, build detections, and in general fortifying your environment and your company with KQL. So as I've heard from other people as well in the past, you don't have to be like an avid user of PowerShell or SQL or SQL. How do you pronounce it? So, and I found it very, let's say, approachable, digestive, and easy to start playing with. So as soon as you get the philosophy of how to get your hands dirty a little bit, I think then it's just a matter of sky's the limit. I mean, you can. I remember reading. Bert Jan's article about how you go from a report to threat hunting, and it's exactly the same thing as I hope everyone in our, let's say, community does. I mean, from trying to translate what you read on a piece of paper or a PDF in this occasion, then obviously translating it into an actionable, detection rule, an analytic, and implementing it and, seeing fruitful results. So, yeah, I found a very nice opportunity there to grow and start doing things. I was also given the opportunity for my work to do a lot of stuff as well. But as soon as, I as an inspiration from you guys, I mean, you, Bertjan, Rod, Matt, I think I caught up with Matt when he was still doing his 365 days of KQL. So, so yeah, I think I saw you. I saw the community, a growing community. So I decided, you know what, it's a very good opportunity. Let's jump in, because I'll be honest. I mean, I've made mistakes. I've learned a lot. I've exchanged a lot of information with you guys, with a lot of people from our community. I've joined some communities in Microsoft as well, where I also had the opportunity to exchange information. And it's a very good thing that the openness that there is in this kind of stuff. I mean, it's good that we get to be heard, and our suggestions, let's say, if they are mature enough and well structured, they are being deployed, they are being, publicly available soon enough. So yeah, I mean, all this kind of, let's say, environment made me progress and, give back. So yeah, a little bit about myself. Obviously, it's not June 28th, it's June 25th. Sorry about that. Yeah, I currently work as a cyber resilience intelligence manager. I'm responsible for anything that has to do with Bertjan. I'm responsible for anything that has to do with red team and blue team within the organization that I work. A systemic bank of Greece. I have over 11 years of experience in information communication technology. I'm focusing specifically in cybersecurity, obviously another typo here, since 2019. I'm an electrical engineer I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, a master's and an MBA. But most importantly, I'm a father of two girls. I'm a scout. I own a wine cooler. In case you come in Greece, you're more than welcome to visit and enjoy some, Greek wines. Although, okay,
let's go.
Yeah, I'm moving forward. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you on this. I know. And yeah, over the last few years, I've started, I don't know, a very bad habit of collecting some watches, and it's bad because it's it starts to feel painfully and painfully expensive. But yeah, that's all about me. And specifically during the time that we've been discussing about, how I started and what I've been doing.
Now I think we lost your voice.
So the wine is good, the food is good, but the Wi-Fi was a bit slow. Welcome back.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So some of the projects that I've been working on the last few, let's say, couple of years, maybe something like that. I've been blogging for many years, but I've been going on and off when I was a student. Later on, when I started working here in Athens. But now that I have a family, I have enough free time to start a blog. So yeah, I started it. And so yeah, and some of the projects that I've been working on, I mean, you've probably know the threat hunting queries GitHub repo. where I've tried to collect some of the hunting queries and detection rules and some security operations, let's say, queries that I've worked with to share them publicly. I also found interest last year in the DFIR resources, the Digital Forensic and Incident Response. So, I mean, we've probably all worked with live response capacity. So it's a very powerful, let's say, tool within the Defender for Endpoint. It's very, I mean, it's obviously it's very useful to know that you can have hands-on keyboard on every machine in your environment. But I think that there was something missing in terms of bringing together not only the capacity from Microsoft itself and what you can build even with, let's say, your knowledge in with regards to PowerShell, but we've seen some other tools also coming in. So, for example, let's see. So this is the repo. So I've collected some of the most, well-known, well-established, and obviously well-documented, so that you can, go end-to-end and start working with that. It includes, let's say, PowerShell scripts. It includes third-party tools like Thor or let's say the Ginsu, which is able to overcome the obstacle of, when collecting a large artifact of forensics, you can break it down to pieces and then send it back to collect it through the console. I mean, magnet forensics, who doesn't know magnet forensics, cyber triage. So these are some of the tools that have the capacity and are documented and can be used through live response. And I hope this is helpful for everyone. I mean, it's at least for the environment that I'm working in, I found it very useful, and it's always good to have, the capacity from Microsoft itself. But having like a third hand of help is always good as well. Yeah, last but not least, I've built a repo with hunting lists. I mean, that's a side gig project, to be honest. It's not something that I work on a regular basis, but it seems to have helped some people a lot, and I've seen some queries about that as well. So anything within, I've been fooling around with some RMM software like TLDs, phishing keywords, and stuff like that. So I put anything that draws my interest here. I mean, some of the work that I've done specifically for the threat hunting queries has been featured in, our common space in KQL search. Bert-Jan, thank you for featuring some of my articles in Custo Insights since you're here. It's very good to be amongst all of you guys. We drag everyone, to be better and, build a very helpful community. And, for everyone that hasn't, that has received the definitive guide to KQL, Matt let me know a few months ago that the repo containing my KQL queries has been featured in the back as a community resource. So, yeah, I mean, I try to, give back and, and share everything I learned, because sharing is a method. I've learned that sharing is a method of, growing yourself as well, making mistakes, reading from other sharing resources, etc., etc. So, yeah.
Definitely, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yes, Bogdan has a question.
Yeah.
He asked, do you also have a repo for KQL that is also using third-party threat intel like VirusTotal, Malware Bazaar, Abuse IPDB, Alien Vault, CrowdStrike, etc.?
I'm not sure that these, I'm not sure how this can be, let's say, I mean, external operator is probably the most suitable, let's say, operator to deploy, but external feed, sorry. But I think that Bert-Jan has a very avid, let's say, source with feeds that can be deployed and the relevant KQL queries that you can run in order to bring threat intel feed. Yeah, Bert-Jan, please share the link.
And what I myself did is I run a logic app to ingest things like Fiodo Tracker, Abuse, CH, all the open source ones. I just run a logic app every hour with a decay of an hour, so every hour it gets refreshed, and then you also can ingest the TI.
Yeah, and I think it's also you can find several, let's say, connectors in Sentinel about all that. So it's probably not a KQL thing to. I mean, you can build your KQL queries in order to bring those threat intel feeds, but you should probably it should probably be more proper to connect them through the connectors from Sentinel and then ingest them through the KQL through a KQL query to build your analytics.
Yeah, I agree.
Third-party threat intel depends. I mean, if it's a Stix taxi threat intel feed, it's probably doable, but yeah, a command line to install third-party threat intel feed out of the box that doesn't provide, let's say, a JSON format, a CSV or TXT or something like that, it's probably not going to work easily. I mean, I can probably one resource is the one that Bert-Jan shared. I mean, you can also go to my blog and check the external data operator as well if you want. I've been trying to document what kind of information you can extract from lists, but then again, you'll have to go through something that already has some sort of type that can be digested through KQL. Otherwise, you'll most probably need to install the relevant connector through Sentinel.
Yeah.
Hope this covers the question, though, Bogdan.
Yeah, and if you're interested, Bogdan, I'm happy to share. If you want to start low with a PowerShell script, there's also an API. So what Johnny mentioned is, we have an updated API since a couple of months already, because previously when you ingested threat intelligence, you were working through the Microsoft Security Graph. The new API is now directly ingesting into the Microsoft Sentinel and also has some more capacity for bulk uploads, but requires the Stix format. But it's no rocket science to bring those in. The only risk I see that if you just create some logic apps and bring in multiple TI, that you might end up with duplicate entries, etc.
Yeah.
And another thing to take into account where I sometimes see people making a mistake. I mean, if you do that in your lab, just to understand how things work, that's nice. But as soon as you find public TI, you might want to take a little bit more time and understand when are these actually being updated, because you might just import it at your wrong schedule and miss the important updates.
Yeah. And another thing, I think another thing that should be taken into consideration is when you should take off some of the IOCs ingested in threat intel in Sentinel. I mean, I saw recently a very good write-up, but I struggle to remember which blog provided it, where there were some PowerShell scripts indicating which that could help you remove indicators, because if you feed and you don't have like a I don't remember the date, so that they can be deleted by themselves. It's probably you're gonna have like, I don't know, maybe years and years of threat intel without updating it. So you should keep an eye on maintaining a threat intel, let's say IOCs in a good state, and don't keep the trust out.
Yeah, but we've seen it happening a while ago with Taxi Connector, because in the early days of Sentinel, I think it was Anomaly who provided some free feeds.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly they were duplicated. And I think they, I don't know if it was them. I don't want to accuse them, but I found myself in my lab with 10 million indicators. and invert those. So maybe something went wrong down the line by actually setting the expiration date. So yes, they've been there forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, guys, as discussed already, I've been working for the last weeks on a blog post. So I've been trying within my lab to test the new plugin for the Defender for Endpoint regarding the Windows subsystem for Linux. I mean, as we have already discussed, I'm an avid user of WSL. I find it very useful. It's quite amazing the fact that you can run Linux within Windows. If we had this conversation back in the early 2000s, it probably would be a very good joke. But Microsoft has completely changed the mindset, the philosophy, and they have embraced Linux and open source projects. So yeah, I mean, we're very happy to see that there's WSL available for Windows. So yeah, in case the rest of the people here are not familiar with that, so you can actually, using Windows subsystem for Linux, you can basically run a Linux environment within your Windows machine, and this takes away the requirement for you to set up a virtual machine or a separate system in order to be able to work in both environments, both Windows and Linux. So you don't have to, consume further resources, build new firewall access stuff. So everything is based in your machine, and you can just fire it up and start working with an Ubuntu, a Kali, or whatever, let's say, distro you want to install, and it's obviously available. It's been very helpful, in terms of it's lightweight, so you can, open it up, run some Python scripts, or, do some tests, run some wget maybe commands or curl stuff that you can't easily run within Windows. It helps a lot in especially in investigations, or if you want to collect some artifacts. And if you haven't tried it, it's a very good feature. You should obviously try it out. But I think that this feature was introduced back in 2016, something like that. 15 to 16. I think it went public somewhere between 16 and 17. So why does this does this matter though, and why should I care? So it seems that by 2023 in Stack Overflow, it was reported that almost 16% of developers use WSL. So that's quite a big number. It's very considerable in terms of, even if in your environment you have like 60% of people working with this attack path, with this feature, it's a quite a considerable, let's say, attack path that you should take seriously into consideration and see how you are going to protect it. Even in the early days of WSL, Bassware malware was introduced and was available in 2017. Almost 100 different malware were associated with WSL, as reported back in 2022. And I mean, the biggest risk is that, WSL is generally available to power users. So I mean, you're probably going to install it, have it available for a developer that's probably a local admin or someone that has, some elevated permissions on the machine, or even on the broader, let's say, environment. So this by itself is a very considerable risk. So yeah, so the answer came from Microsoft itself. So they introduced back in March, I think it was publicly available. So this is the this is how you can install Linux on Windows with WSL. So I'm going to share it in case you don't have it already, or if you're not using it, so that you can, let's say, test it yourself. And I think back in March it went public, the fact that you could install a plugin for Windows subsystem for Linux. So you actually can, let's say, WSL, what it does, it creates a container within your Windows environment, and anything that happens in this container, it's black box at the moment. So if you don't have a plugin, you just see, the only thing that you can see that someone runs WSL locally. So Microsoft introduced this plugin. I think you can go into settings, endpoint, and in the onboarding, you can choose your environment, choose the operating system, and there you can download the Windows Subsystem for Linux plugin. So it's simply an executable. You download the installation package, you pass it over to the endpoints that already have Defender for Endpoint, and you just run it. Things are not that easy also in the same time. So I mean, as required, you have to operate with a Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Plan 2. It's not compatible with Plan 1. And also, if you're running Windows 10, I'm pretty sure that the company here is highly unlikely they have a version of 2004 and earlier, but either way, it's also a requirement. Now, things get tricky as well in case you have, let's say, a proxy. I mean, if you're working with a proxy in Defender, then you will have to, let's say, accommodate the same settings for the plugin as well. So this is something that you have to take into consideration. And then, I mean, it's quite straightforward. You run the installer, and you should be able, let's say, to see the results within the assets. I'll go into the results in one moment, but what I wanted to share with you is there is a very detailed troubleshooting guide here at how you can onboard the plugin. So at every time of the process that you're going to, install the plugin, you can always go back to health check at what kind of status the plugin is at for the Defender. Go through some troubleshooting, see if there's a proxy problem, if you have to run the WSL instance again because you might had it. I don't know. It takes some time also to be onboarded, so don't expect to, as soon as you fire up the WSL on your environment, to be present on the asset inventory. And also, it generally gives you, let's say, an output for the telemetry, whether you have to wait, make changes, and what changes you have to make on your environment. So if everything works as expected, you should be able to see something like that. Everything green and blue. Distro running should be true. I mean, this is where WSL is running. It's able to identify the plugin version, the WSL version, Defender app. Everything should be as depicted here. So as soon as you have this, you should be able to go to your environment, and while going through your assets, you should be able to see the container and the host. So container takes the exact same device name as the host, but the biggest, let's say, differentiation point here is that it's being automatically tagged with WSL2. So as soon as you see, don't be, I mean, it's not something to freak out. It's just a container. It's just this device only collects the everything that has to do with what happens within the WSL container, and it should be depicted as it is right here. So OS platform Linux, obviously, and it should be tagged as WSL2. So as we already discussed with Alex as well, I've built a couple of queries about this. So if you go to, I mean, yeah, it's published now, so I can definitely show this. So yeah, I mean, I've built the query so that you can see first which of your devices within your environment run WSL. So, I mean, if you are like 10,000 people of, you know, if you have 10,000 endpoints, it's probably easier to run this KQL. You know what? Who runs WSL? Then it's a good idea, in case you haven't done anything, probably you shouldn't be worried about the next query. So this query also identifies which endpoint also has installed the plugin. And the last query that I have built here also identifies endpoints that already have WSL, but don't have the plugin installed. So either way, you can start identifying which endpoints should be tackled with a plugin, which endpoints already have the plugin. Whatever the case, you can, let's say, tackle all kind of scenarios. It's also important to show the query that is also shared here. So you can also see from the documentation that you can get, I mean, obviously the container and the device, the host device itself has the same name, but apart from the tag that it can differentiate one another, they also receive a separate device ID. So we'll see in a few minutes how this can be tricky in terms of threat hunting and building detections and automation. But you should be able to, you should always have in mind that there are two separate devices and both of them have different tables writing in them. So this is a very good, these are two very good, let's say, queries, so that you can get the device IDs and the host device IDs respectively, let's say. And yeah, in this, and the first query also shares the device IDs for the in the organization. So identifying is quite simple. I mean, you see which kind of endpoints, which endpoints in your organization have run, let's say, WSL. You run the plugin, you onboard them, boom, you have two separate assets here. So let me go through a little bit in this blade, because there are some concerns that I'm going to share in the following that might be of interest for you guys. So as you can see, there's limited, let's say, information to show here, but and also there are not the same options as exactly in a regular, let's say, host. So as you can see, you can't isolate, for example, you can't run live response, etc. It might be limited, it might look limited, but again, you have like an attack path that you can have, that you can shed light on. So having said that, as soon as as soon as you onboard, let's say, the container in Defender for Endpoint, tables start to, ingesting, let's say, logs, and at least for my lab, the tables that have been updated from the specific device are the ones presented here. So you can reach out to device network info, device info, device network events, file events, process events, etc., etc. And you can also find some great TVM information. So yeah, obviously, as the meme implies, you have some tables to work with. So if we take into consideration the network events, the file events, and process events, so we have something to work with here. Again, I've tried to put together some queries so that you may be acquainted, let's say, with with a Linux environment. But again, these are very indicative. I mean, as you can tell, it's very different of how developers use their WSL or whoever uses, let's say, I mean, if someone uses a Kali in WSL, I'd give up. It's probably, there's no use in using the plugin, right? But there are some very good, let's say, opportunities here in these three tables. So, for example, if you want to go through a reconnaissance, let's say, hunting query, you're probably going to look something into, you know, who am I, you name, find, grep, maybe building some, identifying some cron jobs, check the past WD, shadow, sudoers, etc. So you can build, let's say, you can build a query. You can take this as an example of, you know, anything that runs through the CLI, let's say, the command line of the WSL can be identified through here. But there's a catch here. So, and this is something that we thoroughly discussed already, and it's about, you have to define the devices that you run the hunting to. It's not that, I mean, these kind of queries, they might be focused on Linux, but there's no use in running them in the whole environment of yours. There's no use in running them for Windows. It's something that should be specifically targeted for your WSL environments. So in this case, building a query that it's focused only on the devices that are WSL, let's say, tagged, it's going to be far more precise. And it's going to be, it's not going to take, you don't have to, let's say, consume resources looking throughout your whole environment. So there's a trick here, and every time you want to, let's say, do a threat hunting or build a detection rule about WSL, focus always on the devices that actually run WSL, or else you can go through the device process events, but the query is going to go through PowerShell, you know, command prompt, etc. But WSL as well, because the device has already been onboarded, the relevant device have already been onboarded on your environment. If you have any questions, you know, pop them up in the pane. So another aspect that I've been, you know, trying to test with is about the privilege escalation. So again, it's the same philosophy. It's, you know, going down to the devices that run WSL, bringing the device process events table that has to do with these devices, and then defining what should you expect to hunt for, what should you expect to detect within the process line, process command line, I'm sorry. In this case, if you're looking into privilege escalation, you probably want to have to look for keywords including smod, sudo, cu, acl, zone, add user, add group, etc. I mean, it's endless. You can go through, let's say, incident response reports. You can choose whichever look suspicious to you, build the query, run it. The philosophy, it's exactly the same, but you know, you have to always remember that it's a Linux environment, not a Windows environment. So next, device file events. I mean, again, fruitful table, even for the Windows part, but Linux as well. Same philosophy. Go down to the devices that only have WSL, and then look for specific scenarios. In this case, I've built a query that helps identify suspicious creation of files in etc folder for persistence. So I've taken, let's say, some of the folders, some part of the folders that accommodate this kind of activity, this kind of TTP. I've put it together, and you know, it's you just declare it in the folder path. If anything comes up indicating that, you know, you've created something within these paths, you have a detection opportunity there. So, and the last, I think, table that should be mentioned here is the device network events. I'll be honest with you. I've fooled around a lot with the WSL, but I haven't seen in action type so many, let's say, options that we see in Windows events. I mean, I don't expect to see the DNS connection inspected and SSL certificate relevant, let's say, action types. But over the weeks that I've been working and, trying different, let's say, commands, trying to connect with some services, the only action type that I've seen is, let me check one again, my environment, because I think it seems like I haven't mentioned it here, but there's only a specific action type that I noticed. So in case you're building,
I believe the answer to that is because apparently, we only have in device network events, with the introduction of Zeek, we have this granularity, right? Other than device connected and attempted and disconnected.
Yeah.
And I assume the answer is that in the WSL plugin, there's no Zeek integration to basically translate and inspect those packets and turns them into the nice action types.
Exactly, but I was just mentioning so that I just wanted to bring this up, mostly because you shouldn't, let's say, take the detection or the analytics that you have already built for Windows, just take away the action type. Not sure if it's going to work, and focus on more static things like, remote IP, remote port, things that are most probably going to hit hard in an analytic. Again, if you work with the plugin for maybe 3-6 months, and you have a variety of users going into it, different, let's say, environments, different purposes, different causes, it's probably going to be a very fruitful, let's say, a table in terms of results. So you can adjust accordingly. But yeah, Zeek is the obvious answer that you don't have this kind of, fruitful events at the moment in WSL, in the device network events table. But then again, even if you want to, for example, Bogdan's conversation earlier, if you want to bring a feed inside and have a specific, let's say, threat intel feed for threat actors leveraging Linux systems, I don't know, maybe it's probably going to be a very good example of bringing it in together. And maybe some CNC, let's say, threat feed for Linux malware, again, probably a very good example of bringing it together here. In this kind of table, I haven't prepared, to be honest, a relevant query, but the philosophy and the idea around it, it's quite common as the device network events within the Windows environment as well. Just have a look at the action type, make sure you just leave it off, try something more simpler, then grow while you monitor your environment, grow together, and have a look at it afterwards. So while working within within the WSL and the relevant plugin, I've also came through some detections and some reports indicating that WSL is being leveraged by threat actors in the host level. So this is something that's mostly targeted in the it's outside the plugin realm, but again, it has to do with the WSL. So with the plugin, you protect the container itself, the environment of the container itself, but don't leave the host outside if someone from your environment works with WSL. You should be looking for malicious activity in this kind of let's say a TTP as well. So someone, let's say, could run from the host the WSL and run it with some specific, let's say, parameters directly and try to abuse it. So I mean, you should keep an eye on that as well. This let's say KQL query will help you, identify some WSL invoking, but at the same time, where it also will identify some suspicious parameters that could try to exploit the WSL use. I mean, if it's if the host has been already taken over,
yeah.
it's a lost case. But it's also another indicator. I mean, you're not losing anything to keep an eye on this as well. So yeah, one thing to keep into consideration is this. The other is, and I mentioned it earlier, and that's the reason why I mentioned it. If you happen to let's say identify something malicious within the container, you can't isolate it. So if something happens, you will have to isolate the whole host. And this is the reason why you should keep handy of KQL queries that can identify directly the device ID of the, if the device ID of the container, if the alert comes from the device ID of the container, you should also have handy the device ID of the host so that you can take action more quickly. The queries I shared earlier in the blog can help through that. I also saw that you shared earlier today a relevant query in KQL search, Alex, which will bring back as a result the device ID of the container and the host as well. So
maybe let me add here. It actually was a result of one of the examples at KQLCafe. But as you mentioned it in our prep call yesterday, there's a WSL minimum requirement. And I assume in the future there's going to be WSL updates, so it's useful to know on which WSL version we are running. What I was actually after, but I haven't found a way, and we discussed it yesterday, is in WSL you can have multiple instances of containers.
Yeah.
And right now, there's no information in advanced hunting that tells you, this now happened in my Ubuntu container or in my Kali. There is, however, a unique ID that you also see in the UI. And from there, you could basically go back via live response and then enumerate the WSL instances that you have installed to pinpoint actually in which container something happened.
That's one thing, and the other differentiation is the one I said earlier about the tag. But then again, I mean, you either way have to go through a circle of information within the console so that you can reach the exact point that which host, where it happened, and probably which host I have to isolate in case I detected something in any of my WSL, let's say, containers. So
and maybe another good point, maybe to really highlight, you mentioned it before, as soon as you get WSL in there, I guess everyone who has their queries based on device ID will have to rethink if you're counting devices because your inventory numbers might become slightly different. You might have duplicates, etc.
So the last points I think come to the conclusion that the device tables and the automation as well. So I mean, if you're building some kind of automation that it's based on something unique, probably the device ID, so you probably you're going to have to build a query that has to end up in the actual host of the container. So as probably you're not going to be able, let's say, to take any action on the container itself, clearing out the device IDs that are related to the container and extracting the actual host device ID, that's the main goal. So if you're building any automation, in any logic app in Sentinel, it's probably going to have to take some extra carefulness so that you end up with a proper result. And then again, the device tables. So as already mentioned about regarding the queries that I shared earlier, I mean, you can search through the device network, the device network events of the whole environment. That would include WSL. But if there's something specifically built for WSL, then again, it should be built in a way that it can extract the container itself and isolate the results right there. So it's not only in terms of building an automation, but results in tables also have to be a little bit segregated in its category. And yeah, I mean, the last thing that I wanted to discuss and point out is the asset visibility. So first time I installed the plugin, it didn't work right away. I mean, if you're like, let's say, a frequent user, as soon as you start using your WSL, it's probably not going to pop up in your console right away. It might take some time. Again, since I was a little bit worried about if it's working or not, I went through the health check process as well from the documentation. And as soon as I understood that, as soon as I saw that everything is okay, went back, just waited a few minutes, and it came along. I think this part is also mentioned in the documentation. So it's also mentioned in the health check troubleshooting guide. So yeah, waiting for telemetry, please retry in 5 minutes. So the guide itself, asks you to be patient a little bit. So if you don't see the WSL right away, especially the first time, just relax. If it's not a problem, if it's a problem that can't go away, and you can reassure through health check that there's no problem, you're most probably going to be able to see your asset in a few minutes. But if you use WSL, let's say at the time that you fire up your endpoint in the morning, who does that? I mean, we always leave our computers open. But anyway, but if you open WSL right the time that you also open your computer in the morning, it's probably going to be there in a lot more quicker. So, and I think that's also mentioned in the guide that if you're if not so frequent user, expect some delays in connectivities. But if you're using it almost daily, expect connectivity to be right away and see your device in the assets. Yeah, so everything that we discussed today about WSL, I've put it together in the blog. As already discussed earlier, I was keeping this blog post, to publish it right after this the KQL Cafe session. So yeah, I mean, you can visit it and look into it. And as always, I mean, I'm open for feedback, discussion, anything that would make us let's say better and keep moving things forward for everyone in the community.
Yeah, no, I mean, thanks for this. I believe WSL does require some attention. As I told you yesterday, as I started to inform my customers about WSL plugin, they looked at me like, please, next topic, we don't use this. And I said, well, run this query, and I can tell you almost every customer who did run it during our session or afterwards actually confirmed me like, oh, looks like there's something out there. And yeah, I mean, it has its maybe, risks, but I also see a lot of productivity gains. I remember the days of, trying to find a Windows port of some very common Linux tool. I mean, starting with nmap and that sort of things. With WSL, those things are just at your fingertips. From that perspective, maybe what you could highlight, nothing to do with KQL, but also super cool and unknown. Although I must admit, I always have to Google to find the name for it. But for WSL, there is actually also a interface, a UI, so that when you have, let's say, Ubuntu or Kali installed, you actually can have access to the Kali desktop.
Alex, we shouldn't share this kind of information publicly. We are opening new problems at the
moment. So where is it? Desktop GUI. There's a name for this, and maybe I should look in the comments and someone already added this.
But if you have it, I mean, I'm also interested to looking into it. I haven't discovered that. To be honest, I'm very happy, using WSL in the form that it comes. But GUI, that's another level.
Oh yeah. Actually, it's WinCax Xcode. So it's nothing to do with WSL. Sorry for making that mistake. It's a tool that comes with Kali. So
okay.
I just added it to the chat box. And the cool thing is, as you can see in the screenshot there of that link, you can just, run Kali WinCax. And there's even different modes like window mode, RDP mode, etc. And you get a full-blown Kali desktop on your system.
Oh, nice.
Well, speaking about GUIs, the other way is also quite easy. If you have Ubuntu running in your Kali, just install the XRDP modules, and you'll be able to just, through the WSL local network connection, connect to the UI of your WSL enabled Ubuntu. That also works.
Yeah.
If you happen to be a GUI guy.
I think we've taken the Linux discussion so far in the Microsoft session, right? Yeah. I mean, it's very nice to see though that Microsoft has provided a good protection mechanism about that. To be honest, I was very worried while reading some early reports of of malware and how threat actors took advantage, because the users the users that are being built within WSL have nothing to do with the rest of the environment. So that itself, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same discussion we have with Mac devices, right? Oh, we just have a few Macs down on the background. No worry about those. I mean, if you spend all that money and effort in protecting your assets, I think it's a good choice to think of, protecting everything possible. And if there's a way to, you provide it, there's an MSI, you throw it in your Intune or config manager or whatever software deployment tool you have. You can easily identify those systems that have WSL available and just, bring that plugin down. Of course, I must admit, in corporate environment, as soon as you have to deal with proxies, it might be a little bit more challenging.
Oh yeah.
But everything is 0 and 1, so not impossible.
I can see Yanni crying. That head nudging is a little bit disappointing.
Maybe also worth noting, WSL, it basically inherits the connectivity method. So now in these days, as we speak about Defender streamlined connectivity. So if your device is already streamlined, the WSL plugin will basically inherit that connectivity type as well.
So it's seamlessly, it's the same as with the seamless integration of the MD, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good to know.
Cool.
Let's hope
Well,
this seamless integration
yeah.
goes with other agents of Microsoft as well. For example, AMA agents. That
Let's
would be
keep that
nice.
for another time.
Sorry, I just had to take it off of me. I had to say it.
Well, speaking about AMA agents, actually maybe a good idea. Let me quickly see. I have something to share here because also here we're taking people by surprise. Yeah. Where do we have it? Yeah. So share this, and because I just catched 2 customers last week where I told them, if I run this query in your environment, you still have a whole bunch of systems. What this query does, I just shared, it's basically going to tell you any old school log analytics agents that will be duplicated in a few weeks. If you happen to deliver your Defender for Endpoint via that channel. So yeah, definitely, if you haven't done so, move to the unified agent for Defender for Endpoint.
Yeah, good to have it. Yeah, I think it's being depreciated in August something, I think, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Exactly.
quite useful. Quite useful.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys, for the invitation, and always good to be with you and learn with you as well. I hope it was nice. And I don't know, should I wish have a pleasant summer? Enjoy your holidays.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Well, you're happy to stay on. I have to quickly double check with Johnny on his how he's feeling because he told me already yesterday he had a little cold and doesn't feel too well. So before I just announce all the additional stuff, how are things going there?
Doing good, but in sake of time, I already hit 2 of my slides from the deck.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're all good.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Again, let's keep those for next time. So yeah, Johnny, again, Michalos, many thanks for your contribution here and for all your community work that you deliver. And yeah, I always say this, but hope to see you back on the show.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Thank you. Thank you as well. I'll be staying here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
So I'll take over the screen then. Here we go. So every month I'm also trying to do something nice into the KQL basics. And this time I thought it would be nice to have the star in project. Because the star, the asterisk symbol you can use in a lot of ways in KQL. But sometimes it doesn't work. So I wanted to show just a simple example. Because we have in a search, if you do a star in the front and in the back, it means that if it searches if a string contains, in this case, my last name. So this works really well, and in a couple of seconds we should have all the results from all the tables where the string contains Castaldi. Because if you do it without the stars, you get just the hash function. Can be also useful, but with hash you have the indexation. So in this case we have all the nice results. In union you can also use star to return all the table names, for instance, without star. It should be there, my screen. Alex, do you see my screen?
I can see your screen. Yeah.
I think Teams is experiencing the heat, but let me just reshare. So share again. Do you see it now, Michalis?
Yeah, his screen is like in an area of 38 degrees. Nope. Okay, good.
Bert-Jan, can you?
Now I cannot see it anymore, Johnny.
Oh, Teams is messing up today. Okay, Bert-Jan can see it. Well, okay. So let's do it again in 3, 2, 1. Maybe I should share it, just the window. Share window, Sentinel.
Yeah, it's coming.
Michalis, for you? Okay.
Just imagining a log analytics window.
Close your eyes and okay. So we if we use star in a union, then we get all the table names back from the query. Next, we can also use it in the graph. If you do a search, for instance, and you can say, hey, every column, show me just if something contains the 200, which is also working. If we do a join between columns, we can use it for a project away. So this way we will kill any column that ends with *1. So all the duplicate columns will be deleted. And this works also just fine. But now, if we do a sign-in logs, for instance, like this, we have a summarize, and in the summarize, we get all the nice columns. And the other day, what I wanted to do, where is it? I wanted to have the project time generated, operation name. What is also a nice one, we can have, I don't know, app display name. And I wanted to see all the risk columns. So I was thinking, hey, let's do risk star, because we have like a ton of columns. Well, let's go. But here, the star doesn't work. And I was thinking, okay, should I just do risk and then detail, risk, detail, event types, risk. And that just makes a crazy query. So then I was thinking about my good old friend, Project Keep. And for some reason, well, I know the reason, but if you do Project Keep, then you are able to just return all columns that end with or start with the risk. This is because the project operator itself, it's an overarching with all the other projects. So if you do Project Keep, then you just can show this. So this works really well. If you need to have a lot of columns with the same name, then you can do it like this. That's my learning KQL for this month.
Yeah, that's actually a super cool trick. Like I had to immediately apply.
Cool, then let's continue to yours then.
Okay, where am I? Okay. I'm just gonna share my whole screen. Hope that works. Good. Yeah, no rocket science. But I thought I'd share it anyway. So I've been lately working on some automation accounts.
Can you zoom in a bit, please, Alex?
Oh yeah. PowerShell scripts to execute runbooks. And yeah, then I sometimes in the morning had to find out, or my customer, that some of the runbooks were stuck for whatever Azure reason. They were pending, they never completed. Alex made a mistake, so they actually ended up in an error, but still show complete on the status. So that with that, I ended up creating this query here, where I'm basically looking at the runbook name and look at the start time. And I basically try to get a list of the start time. Now, when a runbook starts, it has a status of starting, running, and then completed. The failed thing here, I just assumed it would show that because you see it in the Azure UI, but not in the logs, apparently. So I don't know whether that's a bug or not, but if you run the query, let me see here somewhere. I have it in my environment prepared. Yeah, so here you see, I mean, these are all nice completed, but in a real environment, when they fail, this column status is basically empty. But what I found out is that if I actually then join this information with the job streams information, then I can look into the stream types and I have an error. And I don't really care about how many. The fact is, even if the job completes, but it has errors like here, that could help me either with Sentinel or with Azure Monitor to create a alert when something isn't quite right. So yeah, that's my query in the works for Azure automation accounts and runbooks. And with that, I give it back to you, Johnny.
Yes, cool. So the other day, Olaf Hartong posted a link about the JA3 being in Defender. So, and for those who don't know JA3, I'm just asking GitHub Security Copilot to see if it can explain it to me. And in the meantime, because this takes a couple of seconds, I'll give my own explanation. JA3 is a methodology made up by some people at Salesforce, and there they created a way to identify clients and servers based on the handshake. So if a client connects to a service, then you get a handshake for the client and for the server. And it seems that all handshakes were unique per application, more or less. In the newer version, they have done some filtering to make sure that you don't have any duplicates. But it helps us a lot with, like it says here, keeping the internet safe. And let's just go by through to the Defender portal. It doesn't like. So what we have is in the device network events, in the additional fields, we now have some data. And in the data, in the additional fields, we have the information, the certificates, the user ID, but also the J3 and J3S, so the server and the client signature. And to make it a bit more fun, we can also unpack all the data. And then we can see all the signatures in the columns. So where do we have it? Over here. So and if we now filter it also, we can sort it actually. And see that there should be some duplicates in here. So each session has its own client and server signature. So what we can do then is we can join that information on the device network events on the connection success. Because if a connection is successful and we join it on the device ID, the local IP, local port, remote IP, remote port, we can assume that it's the same thing. So if we run it like this, and we first have the first bits, and then later on you can also see these are the columns we can cast away with the *1. But if we look here now, we also have the initiating process, and we also have the file name. So in this case, we want to see which processes have which hash. So we get the strings out of the array, and then we do a count, in this case per J3, and we do it based on the initiating process file name and the version, because like I said, in J3 there are some duplicates. In this case, we can see that MS Edge Viewer has the same version here, but still has two client signatures. But in this case, we can make a list of all applications which we think are normal in our environment, maybe filter them out. And then you can, for instance, quickly spot malicious applications, or the other way around. If you're doing incident response and you see that the WannaCry.exe file has a certain J3, then we can do the search if it maybe lives on other clients. So, and then as you can see, I filtered here out the server signature. And so we can do it the other way around to see which server-side components are being called. In this case, on this IP address, there's this component. And then we can see that Teams connects to this component, which is quite nice because you can easily filter out all Teams connections, for instance. So what I wanted to show is, in this case, this is the signature for the Camtasia software. So I looked into where is it running and where is it connecting to. So let me just go back a second because I think I went a bit too fast here. So if we go here to all application or all connections, then let's just grab Snagit, for instance, and we go to the device network events where additional fields contains this string. You can also make it more specific by going to the actual item in the table in the additional fields. But yes, these kind of strings are quite unique, so they won't be in the additional fields unless there's a connection to it with high certainty, of course.
So
now, yes,
since I hadn't heard of this earlier, is this something similar like in Zeek, like the unique UID, where across the various Zeek logs you have that unique identifier?
I am not sure how it's called in Zeek. I also know in Zeek they also upgraded to the new version. There are packages for that, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, we have 8 weeks time to figure that one out.
Nice. And then you also have it in F5 and in Extra Hop, and in all tools are upgrading to 4. So in this case, we can see that this signature lived on one device in the last 24 hours, and it made connections to all these IP addresses. And for the people who worked with these IP addresses a lot, it's a lot of Microsoft here. And also some internal connections, which is kind of cute. Haven't seen this one yet. Oh no, it's not internal. It's 212. Never mind. So it's also external. So in this case, you can use it to better understand your network traffic. That's one of the cool things I did this month with KQL.
This month. Yesterday, since Olaf announced it. Great, good. Let's go for the last one and then call it a day. Thanks for that, Johnny. Yeah, speaking about network connections, I bumped over this, doing some informal threat hunting yesterday. Yeah, I mean, not everything is new, but the result was a little bit shocking. So speaking about internet-facing devices and communications to the outside, so first of all, since a while, we already have in the device info table a attribute that is internet-facing, which is by default, if you do it like this, true. I actually had to question myself, like, how can this work? But yeah, if you do just where internet facing, it will default to true. More properly would be to actually write out the where statement here. So that gives me all internet facing devices. But then we also have in the device network events, we have inbound internet scan expected. Because a device is classified as internet facing either because it has network connections or it was being scanned from the outside. Then taken from the examples, we can, of course, if we want, look into specific internet facing traffic, 445 based on device info. So what port was used there. But more interesting, and this is still in testing, I also found a internet-facing reason called external network connection, and that caught my eye. So I did a little bit of an unprecise join because unfortunately in the external network connection, it's not really going to tell me the remote IP address, but at least it tells me about the port. So what I did is just, join this, everything that's public on device name, left, right, and then local IP and internet facing local IP. And then also on the port, a mapping. And that already at least got me closer to see all the connections to the external network. And then came the shocking moment where I had to call someone because I then also joined, and this part I just stole, I stole this from the Sentinel repository by basically bringing in the threat intelligence information. And the result was basically that it all started with internet facing and external network connection, and basically with a good hit on some threat intelligence. So some other people are now working and looking into it while I'm having my fun with you guys. So yeah, that was it. Not really finished. Probably needs some adjustment. I don't know whether I just bumped it by good luck. So definitely have to look into the joints and the timing of the joints. But yeah, I did find something. Good. And with that, I bring up the closing slide. And would like to say thank you for joining and hanging in with us. Especially those who are football fans and missed the Dutch match. So I also will have to watch it afterwards. So please don't tell me whether we won or not. And on behalf of Johnny, myself, and everyone, we wish you a very nice summer holiday, hopefully with less rain as we had in the last couple of months. Stay safe, safe travels if you happen to have vacation, and see you back in August. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.